And most of my car gathering was easy. I just fell into it, and the timing was right and everything like that. So Jack Dominic lined me up with, he heard of one in Fargo, Moorhead, and Blackway, Mr. Blackway. He lined me up with him, so I got the car. I had a chance to buy another one, and from the same guy. He had two of them. One was the one I have, was pretty well built. It came out of Denver. I went down to Denver one time and I met Pandolfo's son that didn't own the car, but he was holding it for somebody else. So then after that, of course, I bought the car, and the other one came up through here. The other car came up through here and ended up in the long run for the Pantowners Club bought it, and we restored that one, and that was the one that's in red today. I met him in 1956, I believe. He came to town before he went to Alaska, and was over at Carlson's house, and Elmer Carlson had the car at the time, and Pandolfo was over there, and Myron Hall was there taking pictures. And of course, I always regret I didn't have my picture taken with Mr. Pandolfo. I shook his hand, and he looked like a nice, humble man to me. I was very glad that I met him. At the time, I was quite young, so probably when you're young, you don't appreciate these old-timers with all the history behind them and everything. Nice fellow. It was a tough time that when he went into this 1917, building the car right before the war, and I think he built his buildings and everything so quick that the outside people were jealous, and they thought that he was getting pretty big in the big industry. They have a habit of picking on people that are little, you know. And I think he meant well, and he would have done very well if he would have stayed with it. A little bit tough luck, and I wish that he would have came out better, but it didn't. And this is what happens to people that are like that. And Mr. Tucker had the same problem with the Tucker car. People were jealous, and they're going to stop them. If they want to stop you, they'll stop you from doing what you feel was a good thing. Well, I think he'd be enjoying himself by now, and he'll just be, you know, do the normal things that a man of that age. He was happy with his wife, a third wife, I think, the one I met when he was over at Carlson's house. They seemed very happy, and I have pictures of her. And then, of course, he went to Alaska, and that was the end for him. Well, I think the easy handling of it when you're steering, it has great horsepower. Of course, my wife likes the idea it folds into a bed, and I will show you that later on, how easy it is to be made into a bed. And in those days, the hotels were far apart, and of course Pandolfo knew that. He had maybe 23 cars, or in the 30 someplace, he had 30 different cars. I have 8 or 9 titles of the cars that he had at the time, and Packard was included in some of those. He drove quite a few Fords. With the hotels and filling stations far apart, I will talk about the tank in the back, a combination tank of the oil, and gas, and water, and the little refrigerator ice box they had for ice, a separate place for ice, and then your food, and then a toolbox. So he was equipped, and all the tools were to fit the pan car for repairing. So I think, well, the combination tank in the back was very unique. That was his first request, was to have the fellows, I can't think of their names right now, in Indianapolis, put that tank in the back, combination tank, and it'll be a sleeper also. Of course, pan backwards is nap in the pan. And so it was great thinking, and I will also show you the lights will focus around onto the motor at night if you needed light to work on it. Which I don't know how fast, but it picks up real quick. It's got great horsepower. Of course, the book says 45 to 50 horsepower, and at that time, well, the 250, I should say, most of his marketing and testing was on the 250 car. As we know, he started out with a Model 10. That was built in Indianapolis. He had 3 of them brought up here, red, white, and blue, and they had the 4th of July feed, the big feed he had on the 4th. And then he had a few more made, probably 10 of them were brought up from there. And then the 250 came after that. It was probably 250 of those that were done, and those cars were tested. Those are the ones they went up Pikes Peak and did all that other stuff with. They were probably an assembled car. They were probably assembled. They were assembled here. He had his plant, main building, at that time set up where he could do the assembling. In Indianapolis, they had everything done down there. And these people put that together, and then there was a rumor that it leaked out and Hudson might have taken an idea off of his car, and then of course Hudson comes back and says, well, he took an idea off our car. So there's always that in the car industry. But all in all, it was a good little car. I like it. It's just very interesting, and we'll talk about the top of it. It's a one-man top. The thing I think that he featured was that when you got the front window, and when he shows that outside, I'll show you the curve on the top. It doesn't catch the wind that much. You get it real short, so the wind won't catch the top and want to push it up when you're going fast, you know. A lot of interesting little things in the emergency brake. We should talk about that when we get out there. And the shifting of the car. It was they used the letter H in the sequence, and it was reversed from other cars. So the shift would end up on the driver's side, not on the passenger side. Had the pan motor meter, so they always knew the temperature of the car. Water, And that's, of course, they got the thermometer in the back so the driver can see it. And hood here, and cut-off switch. Could always shut the gas off there. Very nice. I had this, so this would come around and you could work in the evening. If your car would break down or you need some problems, why. And of course, I like the visor on this car. You don't see them with too many visors. That's nice. I like that part. And of course, I put spotlights on it because I like that. It has a clock, wind up clock on it, which is real nice. And of course, you got your speedometer there, and mileage. And here's your gas gauge, and oil, and battery, temperature, and this is your switch. This one here came. There's your choke over here, and this spark and gas throttle. And this is, and that's the something gimmick that was on here. It turns the tail light after a while. If I got enough in the battery, why? And it was hooked up to the horn. And it was a turning light in the back of the car, let the person know behind you that he was going to turn. Kind of comical. It has with the spare tire. It comes with the spare tire. And here is the light. It's kind of funny. I don't know if that'll work, but you can. I'll go up and see if it works. Kind of neat. Oops. But anyway, you get the idea. I don't know how anybody would see it, but in those days, why? And then you got your tank, back to the combination tank, compartment tank. You got your oil and your water. That's a water, and the biggest thing was gas. So your biggest gas. This was divided up just for gas. And then you got your ice box here, ice over here, and food here. And then of course your tools. You got your toolbox. And that's nice and deep, so it holds a lot of stuff. Jacked and everything. So he used every bit of the car. Every bit was used, I think. That's a little advertisement. They advertised in those days also. Now we could make this into a bed. I will show you how fast it is that you could do this. What I'm going to do is step up here and take out the horse blanket right away. This is the blanket that they probably carried around, and that's all you do. Pull that back, and that goes back like this. Let's put this up here first so the top can rest on that. And you can see with the blanket and all, it might work pretty good. Let's see if I could lay down in this. Oh yeah. So that ain't too bad at all, is it? See? Works kind of nice, you know, and if you had side curtains on there in case it was raining, and then if you had the upholstery guy, the make-up screens, you can make up screens so if it's hot outside, you wouldn't, you know, get too warm inside. So there's a lot of great ideas. I think it was a great idea. Good car to travel with. You got everything with you, and just you couldn't ask for anything more. Wonderful design. The designer worked for Buick. He worked for Chevrolet, the designer, so he knew what the heck was doing. In the 250, they used the Continental engine. This one here is called the Model A. The Model A was all assembled made and assembled, of course, in the Pan company. And they had a 6-cylinder car that was being made at the time that he had to leave. And it was spotted in Cold Spring. We don't know whatever happened to that, but he was coming out with a 6-cylinder. There we are. It's such a neat idea. And they had those nice horse blankets. You could lay on that or cover up with that. So that was nice. Okay. Now, another thing I didn't talk about was the color of the car. The color of the car he had in those days when he first started out, he recommended it to be pan green. Now, the other car that you have at the museum, that's close to what he had in mind. But the chassis was cream. In those days, chassis were cream. That was very popular at the time. So he would have had that nice dark green, and the chassis was cream. And that's the way they came out with it. But we have never seen one like that. All the Pans we saw so far, which was very few, were black, and there's probably maybe a dozen Pans left in the country. Model 10s, he had this stripe, and that's why I put that on there. He had that stripe, and he had it red, white, and blue, and that was a white body, blue. There was probably 756, I always say, that were made. So he made a lot of cars, and he had good intentions of really. Well, look at the factory. I mean, it's unreal. He probably outdid anybody else in this business, and they were jealous, and it's just a dirty shame that he had to go the way he did. I know when he came back to St. Cloud, and he was unhappy. He wouldn't even drive a Pan. He drove another car. He wouldn't when he lived here for a while before he went to Alaska. So,
yeah. Motor behind it, I guess.
Yeah. Started taking the letters down, and the guys came and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm taking off the letters." He said, "We'll help you." So we took off the letters, and the letters were made of all metal. They were thick, all metal, and these are the back of the letters, and I put them in front. I made them out of wood, the rest of them, and that's how we got them to at least parts of the. I had a stone made for him because there was nothing up there for him. Fairbanks, Alaska. And a fellow was up there, and he looked, and there was a piece of plastic on the ground in the Catholic cemetery. And he went back 2 years later, and it was gone. So I had a stone shipped up there, and a friend of mine put it on there. And so that stone is there today, and I hope someday that I can go up and see it.